All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our movie discussion for the Children's Hour. Hi, I am Dr. Chloe Northrop. I'm at the Connect campus, and joining me is
I am Dr. Karen Wisely. I am at the Northeast campus.
And I am Samantha Elkins, and I am also at the Northeast campus. And I should say we are all history.
Yes, we are all history professors here at Tarrant County College. So thank you so much for those who are joining us today and those who are going to watch this video. Today we are going to be discussing, in honor of Pride Month, the movie Children's Hour. So Karen, get us started with our background.
Yeah, I was just ashamed, I guess, by a young queer kid about choosing this movie for Pride, but I think it is an important movie, and maybe not as proud as it should be, but you can be proud that and have pride that we made it through this period of time when literally all movies were expected to be this way. Before we get into the discussion.
Yes. Okay, so when you say Pride Month, I think that there was actually some confusion with this young queer kid of what Pride Month is and maybe a tiny bit of the history. So before we dive into this, could you, Dr. Wisely, give us a little bit of that for those who might be confused? Because there might be an image of Pride Month that we might have in our mind that comes in, and maybe that movie that we just talked today didn't mesh with what maybe our idea is. So take us into that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think Pride was established in 1970 with the first Pride Parade, which was celebrating the 1-year anniversary of the Stonewall riots. So the Stonewall riots happened end of June, June 28th, 1969. A gay bar in Greenwich Village in New York City called the Stonewall Inn was raided by the police, and it was a routine police raid, and it happened quite often in gay bars. And the people that they would go after, the people who would be arrested and harassed the most, would be we would call them gender nonconformists. Let's call them gender nonconformists. They are people who are not conforming to gender norms. So you have drag queens or trans men or women, and more of your masculine presenting butch lesbians. They would be singled out because they would be arrested for a law that said that if you were wearing 3 or more items of the opposite sex's clothing, you were masquerading as someone of the opposite sex, and you would be arrested. And they'd take them in, and they would mistreat them. A lot of times, putting like your butch lesbian women in with the drunk tank with violent criminals who are men. They would be beaten and raped and all of these sorts of things. And if you were lucky enough to not be put in jail during one of these raids, then a lot of times your only response was to get as far away from there as possible and vow to yourself, I will never go to another one of these things. That's usually what happened. When they would release people, people would just run and go away from this place and try to forget that it happened. On that night, they didn't. They stayed, they hung around, and when they started bringing people out in handcuffs, they started throwing coins at the police. They then escalated to rocks and other things, and then before you know it, riots happened. They pulled up a parking meter and used it as a battering ram, chasing all the police and everybody back into the stone wall and using it as a battering ram to try to get to them. And then the riot police came in as backup, and you had 4 days of rioting that followed. This is widely seen as the beginning of the gay liberation movement, which isn't the first organizations that the gay movement had, but the first really in your face movement that came out of this. And so then the next year they had a march in remembering that, and to reiterate the fact that it's that's where you get um the chant, we're here, we're queer, get used to it, and commemorating that fact. And that's where we get our pride um celebrations. And the celebration is in that, we're not going to assimilate, we're not going to pretend like we're not who we are. And it is an ability to be who you are. And that's what pride celebrations are supposed to celebrate, is allowing people to be who they genuinely are. So that's, the meaning of pride. um in today's world, a lot of times it is seen as, like, a celebration and goofiness and all of that. But understand that underlying that is pride was a riot. Pride began as a riot. Pride began as a riot to stop abuse against LGBT people. And it is a celebration of community. So those are that's the meaning of pride, I would say.
Can I bring up one almost embarrassing memory that I have right now, Karen?
Sure.
I don't know if you
Sure.
remember this, but a very young sheltered graduate student started at University of North Texas in 2009. And I remember sitting in I think it was a history help center, and someone said something and said Stonewall. And I remember looking at you and said, what's that? And you explained it to me then, and I had never heard of it at that point. So I would like to just hear you talk about it again, brought me back to that moment. I'm like, oh my goodness, I cannot. And like, you were very kind about it. You weren't like condescending or anything either, but it was one of those moments that I had genuinely never heard of it before in my life. Yeah.
It's not, I mean, I'm always shocked, and I mean, I try not to show it because I don't want to belittle anybody, but I'm always shocked by how few people actually know what Stonewall was. And and quiz, you could tell if you quizzed people on it and they Googled it, you would get answers about Stonewall Jackson, which always kind of cracked me up. But it is getting, I mean, there's more and more like media about it. There's documentaries about it now. There was an actual a movie about it a few years ago, which was terrible, but we're not gonna go into that. But and there's more information out there now, so I think that it's becoming more of you're able to say Stonewall, and a lot of people know what you're talking about. But that's what pride is. But this movie is a little different than that. And before we get into the discussion about the movie, I like to introduce it by reading the log line and then discussing who the stars of the movie are. So I'm going to do this right now so that we can get into this movie, because I think it's an important movie to talk about. All right. So the log line for the Children's Hour is: a malicious student tries to destroy the teachers at a girls' school. It stars Audrey Hepburn as Karen Wright. You may know her from her most famous role of Holly Golightly in Breakfast at Tiffany's, but she's also
I'm sorry.
Eliza...
No. Eliza Doolittle and My Fair Lady. I think
no. Holly Golightly.
Okay, I'm going to disagree. We'll agree to disagree on that one. Sorry, keep going.
But I was going to mention Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady. Shirley MacLaine as Martha Doby. You may know her from playing Deborah Winger's mom in Terms of Endearment, or when she was much younger in a movie called The Apartment, which is about a businessman who had an apartment for his mistress. When she was much younger. Actually only a year before this movie was made. So she was still kind of young in this movie. Or if you're like me, you know her from playing Weezer Boudreaux in Steel Magnolias, which I just watched again last week. And James Garner as Dr. Joe Carden. If you are an old, like me, you may know him from the Rockford Files television series from the 1970s, but more likely you know him as Duke from The Notebook, right? The elderly Noah in the Notebook. The Children's Hour was based on a 1934 play of the same title, written by Lillian Hellman. The film version was directed by William Wyler and released in 1961. It was nominated for 5 Academy Awards but did not win any. So I know Samantha wants to talk about the play that it was based on, because it is very this is the second adaptation, the second film adaptation. There's one in 1936, also directed by William Wyler, but in that one they had to change it because the Hays Code was in full effect in Hollywood at the time. So there was not allowed to be any focus or even hint or mention of the word lesbianism, homosexuality, or anything like that. So they had to change it so that the lie that the children told about the two teachers was a rumor that one of them had been sleeping with the other's fiance. So that leads us to 2 things. Let's let Samantha talk about the play, and then we'll get into this Hays Code, because I think that's very important.
Yeah, I was going to say it's so hard to separate the play really from the Hays Code on some level, because what was really fascinating is when I was going into this, I was like, is this based off of anything? Like, did this happen? And it turns out the play was actually based off of historic events that happened back in like 1810 in Edinburgh in Scotland. And I was like, whoa, okay, so this happened. But what's crazy is it was actually a biracial student that accused the teachers of something. I can't even remember what. I think it was still lesbian. Gosh.
Yes, lesbianism.
Lesbianism. Apparently the code is full impact on me, apparently. Sorry about that, guys. And what was really interesting is they actually have found evidence, most likely it happened completely different. They actually went to court and they found the girl to be liable and everything, and like her family to be liable because of the racism in England against a biracial student. So I was like, oh man, so this is bad in a totally different way. And so like the writer, the author of the play just found this really fascinating. And so then she writes this play, and the play really probably would not have been allowed, except for it was so popular basically in New York City that they were like, we can't ban this play. People like it too much, which I thought was just really fascinating. And it kind of tells you something about that. I saw in one review, somebody put it really well, that they were like, Hollywood is always the arts is always like 3 decades ahead of society or something. And I was like, but it's that kind of idea that you already have these authors, these writers that are looking at this as an issue. But it's really fascinating because then you get these authors and directors, and you see the impact when they decide, oh, we're gonna put it on the big screen, and they completely rename it and change the whole like lie, which really undermines, I feel like, the integrity of this play.
Yeah, I mean it makes it a completely different work, and they couldn't use the title either because too many people knew about that, so they had to call it These Three. Is that
Yeah.
right? Yes. Which I don't know if These Three would make me go. I don't know that the Children Hour would make me go to see a play, but or a movie either. If we're just going off of titles, but it's not that intriguing. But yeah, it is very it's a completely different story. It is,
Yeah.
when you take out that the lie and change it with something else. So let's talk about that, because one of the things that kind of cracked me up about this was that they never say the words.
No. Like we talk about, okay, so there's the code, and I want you to talk more about this code, Karen, because oh my gosh, this is such a big deal in the 1930s, especially. But you almost still can see the code in the 60s. It's just
it's weakening, but it doesn't completely go away until much later. So the Hays Code, or the Motion Picture Production Code, as it was sometimes called, or just the code. It's named for Will H. Hays, who was the president of the Motion Picture Production and Distributors of America. It was adopted in 1930, but it began to be rigidly enforced in 1934. And it spelled out the acceptable and unacceptable content for motion pictures produced for a public audience in the United States. And the reason that they put it in place is because there were threats because of some questionable content that had made it into movies. There were threats about censorship, essentially, about, like having outside people outside the motion picture production censoring what can or cannot, and they said no, we'll do it ourselves. All right. It's compared to what happened. I'm gonna mention this, but we're not gonna get into it because we're not talking about baseball. But what happened after the Black Sox scandal in Major League Baseball was that, people came in and they were like, if you guys, Congress is basically, if you guys don't fix this yourselves, we're going to come in and pass some laws and fix it. And that's when we got the first commissioner of baseball. Kennesaw Landis Mountain, right? Kennesaw Mountain Landis, that's his name. Anytime there's three names, I will mix them up, guaranteed. Anyway, so he is the one that kicked the 8 out of baseball, including, Shoeless Joe Jackson, where there would later be that movie, Field of Dreams. So this is Hollywood doing the same thing. Before Congress can come in and pass laws as to what can be put in movies, they're going to put somebody, one of their own, in charge of deciding what is acceptable and unacceptable content. And any mention of homosexuality was completely banned. So it's going to be enforced. Yes, go ahead.
I wanted to add, and what's interesting is the code itself, if you look at the actual language, they don't even mention homosexuality in the code. It's just seen as like sexual deviation.
Yeah.
Deviance.
Yeah.
Like that's how bad it is. We can't even list it.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that's, like I could geek out here and talk to you about, sodomy laws in the United States and how they went from it's kind of like Voldemort, like it is so terrible we can't even name it, to we can't, the judges and the justice systems, like we can't prosecute anybody on that because it's too vague. So then they're like, oh, let's go to extreme detail on exactly what it is. And then it's like, whoa, just back up there, guys. That's Foucault in action. But yeah, so this code was enforced from 34 to the 1950s, and it begins to by this guy whose name is Joseph Breen. He was the administrator. He was the head of this and he was very, very strict. Then after he left in 54, it begins to weaken. But even in the weakened state, where there could be an allusion to having gay characters in the film, they're identified by their, flamboyance and their being overtly sexual innuendos and things like that. But you're never allowed to say, oh, he's gay or he's homosexual or anything like that, because you can't say those words. And it was kind of an unwritten rule that any gay characters that were introduced have to come to a violent end, because you don't want to encourage this type of thing. So, all movies are super, super duper depressing.
I feel like foreshadowing, Karen.
Yeah, and it still is the case well into recent times, where we see most of, I mean, I it's funny because I study LGBT history. I am a member of the LGBT community, and I can't stand most LGBT themed movies because they are so freaking depressing. And that is even ones that are still made, like Brokeback Mountain and Milk and all of these. It's like, you have to go watch RuPaul's Drag Race to cleanse your cleanse your palate a little bit, right? So, but it's important to understand that was the rules. Those were the unwritten rules, that it has to end badly for the person who was LGBTQ, because they didn't want to be accused of, well, what we're seeing in today's society, of this grooming of presenting this lifestyle as being something that is great and that people would willingly jump into. So it's after 54, there's representation in some movies, but it isn't good. So so that leaves us to today's film, The Children's Hour, which is, like I said, super duper depressing. So these two women have been friends since college. They own this girls' school. And they're working hard, barely making money. One of them, Audrey Hepburn's character, Karen, is engaged to James Garner's character, who's Dr. Joe something. Yeah, Carnan. And
a young James Garner is quite a dish. Like, my sister was watching it with me, and we were both like, "What?" Like,
yeah.
And I looked at it, she's like, "Oh, you guys are gross." We're like, "No, he's like a handsome young man. Very tall." I don't know, and I feel like I've only maybe seen him older, so I don't know if I've ever seen him this young in something before. So I don't know. I was like, "Oh."
Well, have you ever seen him in the Maverick movies? Like the old, like not the Mel Gibson Maverick movies, but the original ones that those are based on, where he was.
I had not, I guess. Yeah. And so it was something new. And yeah, my sister and I are both like, we thought he was very handsome. So yeah.
He is. And then he's got the cleft chin. He's got, he's very black curly hair.
While he's delivering babies,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so he's as the doctor in town is obviously, high in the social status and economic status, and he is engaged to Audrey Hepburn's character, and Martha is kind of a frumpy old maid. No, she is not. I think Shirley MacLaine is also very attractive, very young in this movie, but she is more, like awkward and shy, I think, and so, and they are all, the three of them are very close friends and have a lovely life, and then we are introduced to Mary, and like the first moment that she is in this thing, I'm like, oh, I don't like her. Like, this is why people don't like kids. That's and she's
a psycho. Like, she seems like a psychopath.
Yeah, like she's gonna grow up and probably murder people. Yeah.
And then pay people so that she never gets caught.
Well, yeah. What's crazy is I was reading like reviews and stuff like that, and what made me laugh out loud is somebody was like, the takeaway from this movie is kids are the worst. It's like,
it's true. And apparently they offered this part to Haley Mills.
Really? Well,
Haley Mills, who of the original Parent Trap and Pollyanna, and I don't know what else has she been in. I mean, just like every old Disney movie from the 1950s and 60s.
And she's now a memoirist, and that was a delightful book, by
Yeah,
the way.
yeah.
I enjoyed it a
Yeah.
lot.
And Disney wouldn't let her take this movie because he basically owned her. And he's like, "Oh no, you're not getting anywhere near that movie." So, so I guess it's good because I don't know how I would feel about seeing Haley Mills playing this part,
No,
because
and Haley Mills does join an all-girls school in The Trouble with Angels, and that is another
that's right.
great film. She's
Yes,
kind
it
of a
is.
troublemaker
Yeah.
there, but definitely much more likable.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad I didn't have to hate Haley Mills. So but anyway, Mary is a little B word, and she, for whatever reason, doesn't want to be at that school, which I don't even understand. It seems like a perfectly lovely school, and if you have to go to school, which you do, why not that one? But she was adamantly against it and tried to get her grandmother to take her
Very
home.
spoiled.
Yes, very
So-
spoiled.
Watching it was very interesting because, okay, for everybody who doesn't know me, and Chloe and Karen both know, I have twin 2-year-olds and a 4-year-old. And it was literally like watching one of them have a tantrum when I said no.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
and
I'm
she's
like,
supposed
but
to be a
that's
little bit older.
expected at 2
Uh-huh.
and at 4,
Mhm.
not at, I don't know, she must be like 8, 10, 12,
I thought 10 to 12. Yeah.
Yeah.
preteen kind of
Yeah.
age-ish.
I was getting an angsty preteen
Yeah.
vibe from her.
Yeah, and it felt like she was just mad because people literally told her no, and she
Yeah.
didn't want to hear no.
Yeah.
And the funny thing too is when she starts on her little tattletaling thing to her grandma, at first her grandma does she's like, oh, we've been here before. And so I feel like she's done this kind of stuff before, very manipulative to that other girl too, with the little kleptomaniac.
Yeah.
So very manipulative. And like the whole family, even the cousin, like spanks her when he's leaving the room. It's like everyone gets that she is bad news. And yet
they believe her.
Just she can rock.
And the reason that they believe her, I believe, is because where would she get this information if it wasn't true?
Mm-hmm.
And it's from that other kid reading the book, right? I mean, isn't
like that wild book they're reading?
Yeah. Whew. That they're, of course, passing around and reading to each other and all of that kind of stuff. So they learn these things, and then as I said before, they don't mention it. It's always just like she whispers into grandma's ear, and then grandma is just like, because it is so horrendous.
And then outside when Audrey Hepburn's talking to one of the dads again, it's never
Yeah. So they never say the word, but the horror is absolutely written on everybody's face. So one by one, they start pulling their kids out of this school, and of course they don't know why at first, and no one will say, and then that dad whispers, and it's like, oh my gosh, where did this rumor start? And it starts because of an argument that Martha was having with her aunt, who is a loony bird.
Terrible character.
Oh my gosh. And she's nuts. I mean, and has this like grandiose idea of herself, and how she should be waited on hand and foot, and how she, all of these people are just waiting for her to make her triumphant return to the stage and all of this, and she's nuts. And Shirley MacLaine has had enough and basically tells her that, and she's like, well, you're having an unnatural relationship with.
No, she said like the way you've been is unnatural or something like that. I never even applied like the way she's like, you've always been unnatural kind of thing, And so it doesn't even say that they are having an unnatural relationship. It never even implies that. But when the girls just say the word unnatural, that's when it goes, oh, it takes like a life of its own, that word. I thought it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Like something that could be so many avenues, it just like ended up tracking with that one, and then like the pieces like fell together somehow.
Yeah, and I think basically she meant that what the aunt meant from the get-go was that Shirley MacLaine seemed to have absolutely no interest in getting married.
Yes, and that was the kind of like
that was the unnatural thing. Yeah, and then it escalates in the minds of these girls to being this accusation of having an unnatural relationship with her friend, the other teacher, and so then they sue, right, for libel. And we don't get a trial because this was based on a play, and but we learned that they lose the lawsuit, and their lives are destroyed because there are no students in their school anymore. They don't have a whole lot of money. Joe is sticking with them steadfastly, which I was very happy about. And then he
can we take a moment for Joe here? I thought he was a lovely character
until he wasn't. I was devastated.
Okay, so I would have an unpopular belief here in the fact that she pushes him into asking. I don't think he ever would have, but she like basically, I would say, goads him into asking, because I think she was just kind of done with the whole thing and wanted an excuse to kind of be like, okay, that's it, I'm breaking up with you. Because I didn't think he wanted to. And finally she's like, don't you want to do you want? And finally he's like, okay, did it. And then she's like, see you always. And I'm like, what? I don't know. I kind of felt bad for him. I was like, okay, like he wasn't pressuring her. Like, I don't know. I'm going to stand up for him for a minute.
No, I'm with you, Chloe, on this, honestly, because the only reason is like it very felt weirdly enough biblical, like, oh, I'm gonna deny 3 times or whatever. And she keeps going and she keeps asking, and he's like, no, I don't need to ask. And he's like, no, I don't need to ask. And he asks, it feels like to me, because she makes him ask.
That's how I felt too. I thought that I don't know. And again, my sister and I are watching this together, and we're both like, poor Joe has just literally been like, I'll move you. I'll bring in your friend. I'm going to give you a new life. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to, it's like, and we're like, poor Joe. He's trying here, I thought. Karen, you don't like Joe?
No, that like ruined it for me, because the reason that she goads him like this is because she knows that this is like under there, because he is protesting too much. He's getting in fights with people. He is being like super aggressive about like, no, my fiance would never, blah, and all of this. And underneath that bravado is doubt. It's there. She knows it's there. And she just wants him to admit it. So I'm on team Audrey Hepburn. Every film she's ever been in.
All right. Granted, I don't think Joe is the villain here. I'll just say that.
I don't think he's the villain, but I don't think he's the hero that if before that confession that he would have been. And I do think it's because he was too aggressive in trying to defend them. Like, if because a lot of it should just be, look, this little B word lies every other thing out of her mouth. Why are we believing her about something like this? Why are you just, honestly, she's a jerk. She's a jerk. Why are you even?
I think Audrey Hepburn kind of wanted to go make it on her own as well. And I don't think she really wanted him to like save her either. I think that was maybe a little bit of it as well. Like, he's like, and she got that he really wanted to stay in the town and all those things too. And to me, I think she just kind of wanted a reason to go out more on her own.
Yeah. And some of that also is because you don't want, people to be like, oh, she's clearly all right because that guy, she wanted people to be like, no, this is a ridiculous, spurious accusation that should be given absolutely no credence whatsoever. And the fact that you are requiring this guy side with me and say I'm still going to marry this, misfit, to make her palatable for you was something that she didn't want. She didn't want to settle for that.
Yeah.
So,
and honestly, was she really that into him it seemed like she just couldn't really like decide anyway. And so, I mean, like, I don't know. I liked him and everything, and hopefully, and I hope he had a lovely life afterwards. We'll just say that.
oh, I'm sure
I
he
hope
had no
was able
trouble finding a wife, and
Yeah, I think he'll be all right.
I do.
So, where were we before we went off on Jada?
Well,
then so what happened?
So the
they
reason
come
they
back.
lost the lawsuit. Yeah, the reason they lost the lawsuit was because the one person that they called as their witness was Aunt Lily, and she never showed up.
No, she didn't.
And then as soon as the trial's over, here she is.
Yeah. And I like how she walks in as if nothing had happened. She just walks in and she's like, "Hey girls, what's going on?" And they're like, "What?" And she's like, "Oh, I just could not be bothered to come back, but I'm sure everything was fine, right?" And they're like, "No, it was not."
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, on the one hand, her believing that everything was fine is her actually having the faith that I wish James Garner had, that this is a stupid accusation. There's literally absolutely nothing behind it. Why are we going through all of these motions just because this child, who is a known liar and a little brat, makes some, and it's an unspoken accusation, they don't, there's nothing going on. And so she comes back and is like, "Oh, you probably cleared that right up, right?" And of course, no, because they didn't have any witnesses on their side to explain what being unnatural meant in that woman's words. So it's she's the villain, right? She is definitely a villain. The creepy dude who comes in the back door, and that dude's a villain. And
the truck that pulls up in front of the house as
Mhm.
they went to go take a walk, and there's
Uh-huh.
like guys standing out there, and you're like,
yeah, those folks are villains. So I mean, there's a lot of villains. I wouldn't put James Garner in that group, but he's not my shining hero, knight in shining armor either. Yes, handsome, but but anyway, so then they tell her she has to leave, and she makes plans to leave the next day, and then Karen and Martha have conversations, and Martha is struggling. And Martha is struggling because she starts to believe the rumors about herself, and is there something wrong with me, because I don't want to get married and I don't want to have kids, and I would rather just be an old maid teacher my entire life, hanging out with my BFF. There's literally nothing sexual going on between anybody in this movie, and yet she starts feeling like, am I in love with my best friend? Is this something that is legit? And Audrey Hepburn kind of brushes it off, and she's like, "No, you're being ridiculous. Of course not. And I'm gonna go for the walk." Apparently in the play, there's the sound of a gunshot. In the film, it is hanging. And Martha is dead.
So in that, I mean, like, that's, I think, when my 14-year-old niece watched with me, and she was like, "Really? This is like," like, she couldn't believe it. She was shocked. I feel like I was kind of like, okay, with the Hays Code, I was like, okay, so this is not gonna end well. And she literally like looks at me like, "For real? This is how it ends?" She's like, I did not like this movie. Like, I watched this whole thing, like, she's like this horrible girl, and then someone dies. Like, what in the world? And then because I told her, I said, "Hey, will you watch the Pride Month movie with me?" And she's like, "Sure." And then I think she looks at me, she's like, "What? Like, what did I just experience?" And I feel like she thought that she had been deceived here.
Chloe.
Well, and it's even more hard hitting because the old lady comes in and admits her mistake and is gone to the judge, and they're going to reverse the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then she kills herself just by the thought of that maybe she is unnatural. And I thought that was really interesting because when I went like this, I thought you were going to say something else, Karen. Those events are switched in the play. A lot of times she kills herself, and then the old lady comes in and says, "Oh, we made a mistake." And I actually, as much as it's like more depressing, the way they did it in the movie, the fact that it's like, "Oh no, we fixed it," or "We're going to fix it," and she still is like, "No, it's
more tragic this way for sure." Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's I'm sorry, Chloe. Again, my apologies to your niece, but maybe watch Summerland with her. Maybe that's.
Is that going to help? Really? Is that going to make her?
I love that movie. That's like the one feel good movie I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say, is this another one of the movies?
No.
We're gonna,
The trap.
No. There's a happy ending. So.
Summerland. Write that down.
So watch that one. It's great.
Okay.
But also made in like 2020, so it's taken us a while to get a happy movie. So yeah, and then there's the funeral, and all of these people come out to the funeral, including Joe, who is spurned again by Audrey Hepburn, who is just her, she's not having it. So I don't know. What do we think, guys? What do we?
It seems like an Oscar bait. Like the some of the really dramatic moments, I was like, oh, they're going for that Oscar nomination, aren't they? Yes.
I don't think either of the leads, any of the three leads got nominated though. So
Well, it's so interesting because all of this hinges on this lie, and the lie has to be big enough that it has to ruin their lives. It's not just like, oh, she stole a bottle of Coke. Like, it has to be big.
Yeah.
And so like you get this feeling of this lie that it all hinges on.
Uh-huh.
And I totally had a thought in it, like and what's really fascinating is I was looking up stuff about the movie, and all of the actors and actresses in it are like, oh yeah, like it was really important for its time, but we didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
Like there, like I think there was a quote by like Shirley MacLaine saying like, oh yeah, that whole scene that she like basically comes out on the screen, and it's such a dramatic scene, and you're just like, you feel for Martha. Even in that time period, I think you could say you're supposed to sympathize with Martha, despite her supposedly being unnatural. And it's one of those things that like you have this sympathy, but you also know it's going to go bad. You know she can't have the happily ever after by all means, based off of the time frame and everything. But then like the actors and actresses, they're just like, yeah, no, we didn't talk about it. We knew it was big, but we didn't talk about what that meant. And I didn't even know I was coming out. I think is one of them said like, oh, I didn't know. And I'm like, how do you not know? Like, obviously this is what this is about.
I'm curious.
How can we ignore this?
Did people know about the Hollywood Code? Like people like moviegoers, the average moviegoer. Obviously the people in Hollywood did, but did the average moviegoers know about the Hollywood Code and that it was going to end in tragedy, or was this a shocking development to them? I don't think
know. The average moviegoer did not know, but maybe I mean, honestly though, at this time and knowing some people that I do, were they upset either that they had these happy or these terrible endings?
No, I'm sure they weren't, but I mean, I'm just wondering if it was as shocking, if it was
Mm,
shocking, because like
I
we went in there, the three of us who know the Hollywood code knew it was in order and kind of knew, even going in, this is going to end badly.
mhm.
Okay. So I wonder if the people who went to the movie theater, bought their ticket and sat down were like, oh, this is going to end badly, or if they were like, you know. So I think probably they didn't know, right?
That's true.
And so it because I can't imagine spending money to go to, well, I say this, that tongue firmly planted in cheek, knowing how it's going to end. Of course I would, because those are the only kinds of movies I like, is knowing how it ends before I go in. But
I
Well,
have
there's
too
been
much
actual
anxiety
studies
to
on
be
that.
surprised. Yeah. I'm getting too old. I need to know already, especially if it's going to have a terrible ending.
It
Like
really
Parade.
upsets me. Like, I hate it. I'm like, I'm so on edge and so
Me
tense, and
too.
I'm
I
just like,
can't
just
handle
let
it.
me enjoy it, please. Just tell me how it ends.
Yeah.
No, that's exactly what I did. I watched the first half and I was like, I know where this is going. I know where this is going. I know what's going to happen because Karen came out of her office devastated. I'm going to look it up.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
looked it up and spoiled it and then went, yeah, I'm not surprised by any of this.
Yes. What I think is interesting too is when these women have it seemed to kind of be a departure for their other performances that I feel like the things that I've seen them. So it's nice to see them in a different role like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was such a well-respected play that, they were on board to get some really big names. Even in 1961, these people were at the peak of their career, and could have acted in basically anything they wanted to, and they got them for this film because it was such a good play and so well received that they nailed it.
What
And
about the black and white element of it? Because I mean, like movies.
yeah,
I
obviously
mean,
it could be a
again,
color.
when my niece watches this, she just thinks like, okay, so old movie, it's just in black and white. But in the 60s, it's
So it was a decision. Yeah.
yeah. What do we
Yeah.
think about that?
I mean, I'm okay with the decision. Like, I don't think color would have added to it, and in fact, it kind of like, I think being black and white it is like another character, adding to the story, that this is just regular normal stuff. There's no need for Technicolor, there's no need for bright colors or anything. This is just the story. It kind of takes it down to its basis level, right? So I'm fine with it. I don't know how I'd feel about it being in color, frankly.
Interesting.
I think it would have detracted with the color. And I think some of it is, even though this came out in the 1960s, which we think of as like old by today's standards,
Watch
it
your
was
mouth.
supposed to be set in the 1930s. So by making it black and white, it's also trying to put it in a separate time period. And I think there's a little bit of a commentary there, like, would we do this today or not? More on the lie. But in 1960s, you're starting to see the burgeoning, you're seeing all these different movements for feminism,
Yeah.
civil rights, burgeoning early.
And you're also
But
coming out of the second Red Scare, where this kind of lie did ruin a lot of lives.
Do you think that
So
it was trying to have commentary beyond just sexuality to talk about other kinds of prejudice and things like that, about what these kind of lies or what these kind of rumors can do? Just
I think that it's very likely that it was sending a message about just blindly believing rumors about people, regardless of what it was. And I think that's an important message coming out of the second Red Scare too. That, because that's all that most of the Red Scare was rumors. Oh, you're hanging around with those people, you're, whatever. There's no like proof of anything that you've done that was wrong, but rumors are going to lose you your job, lose you your home, your livelihood, your life essentially. And so I think that is a cautionary tale as well, right? So
yes, I mean, growing up in a small town, I definitely can see that there was elements of that. That they're obviously in a small town area. That this one kind of accusation like this in their entire livelihood, it wasn't just their like jobs I mean, it's like their entire lives were taken away from them. And I think that placing it in the setting that they did show that, I mean, like their school was their home, it was everything that was taken away by that. And I think that made it very powerful in that. Did this playwright write anything else that we know of?
Lillian Hellman. She's super famous. Lillian Hellman, right? I mean,
I was just
am I the only
wondering.
one that knows who she is?
Yeah,
I don't know what
I'm
else
not
she's
as well
written,
versed on
but
plays most of the time, unfortunately.
And I just wonder if there's been other stagings of it. I'm looking at
There have been. There actually was a staging of this pretty recently in 2019, and it was like Natalie Portman and I can't remember who the other person was. I recognized their name. I was like, oh, okay. And it was over in London because there was these questions about like why now? And I did want to ask you guys, do you think this is a movie that could be remade today or not?
I think definitely it could be remade. I don't know that they could go with the same secret though.
No.
Yeah.
Because I struggled
and that's
when
something I'm very prideful about.
There you go. Oh, look, there it is. There's our circle right there.
because I don't think the rumor about someone being gay or bisexual or any of those would ruin their lives today.
Karen, I think it depends on where you're at. And
well, yeah, but I mean, I don't think that there's the automatic horror that people would be like, oh, which is very important for the secret to take hold. The rumor to take hold is the horror of it. I don't think that there's that level of,
Well, and one thing that I thought was really interesting watching it is we see this child and we know it's a rumor. We know that she's malicious in her intent. We've seen her behavior before she does the rumor. But there was a part of me watching it that I was like, could we actually put a movie out like this now? Because so much, like we worry about it with, like weirdly enough, I think of Sesame Street, that they don't want Snuffleupagus to be the imaginary friend of Big Bird because they didn't want children who are being like molested not to report and not believing children and how complicated that gets. Now, granted, they let her collaborate it with her friend she's in the room with the friend and she's like holding her thing in her pocket. And I'm like, oh. Now, granted, that wouldn't happen today. So I don't know if it could happen in the same way today, but there was something about it watching it that I was like, but we can't just dismiss these things necessarily outright because there are so many things that we're a lot more aware of today, and especially regarding children.
Yeah, that would make it complicated, but I was thinking like I'm taking the children thing out of it. I think that they could remake it where it isn't kids who are spreading the rumor. It's two coworkers or something like that. And I think that there's still room for this. I want to talk about Lillian Hellman for a second because I just looked her up. And interesting thing number one about Lillian Hellman is that she had a relationship with Dashiell Hammett. Okay, never mind. All right, forget that. Forget I said that. And educate yourselves, guys. But she was blacklisted during the Red Scare.
I could definitely see that.
So she refused to answer questions in front of HUAC, so she was blacklisted in the film industry, although she was allowed to continue to work on Broadway. Yeah, you kind of can see that in her work, I would say. And another movie or play that she wrote that became a movie was called The Little Foxes. So that is a movie that's starring Bette Midler, or not Betty Davis. Sorry, I see Bette, and yeah, Betty Davis. So that is something that is interesting. She was a very well-known, well-respected playwright, and a political activist, because she refused to answer whether or not she was coming. So that, yeah. And Dashiell Hammett, guys, is also an activist and a writer. So
See, okay, can you hear me?
I
was on mute. See, and I the moment you said, oh yeah, she like HUAC and everything, I was like, oh yeah, I do remember reading that. I can't believe I forgot that. There was a quote by her, I believe it was either her or the director of the movie, that said this quote, this movie, this film, this play, it's not about lesbianism at all. It's about a lie. And I was like, but is it? Especially in that time.
Well, I think that her point of view, it is about a lie, because she, the playwright herself, is the one that changed it in the 1930s version to be a different lie, and she felt it didn't ruin the story. Okay? Because she, the playwright, the one who wrote the original, was okay with the change. She came up with the change herself. And in the 1960 version, I'm sure she had a lot of thoughts about a lie.
Yes.
After what she had been through. So I believe that she believes that. Like I said, I don't know what kind of lie it would have to be in today's world to have the same consequences, the same willingness of people to believe without even questioning. What proof do you have? What are you talking about? What do you all of that? Because that's where the lesbianism thing comes in, is because people were willing to believe that just based on rumors and innuendos, because that's all there were.
Yeah.
In 61. Not a lot of people were coming out. A lot of people were outed. So it's a different world now. Not different enough. But it's change is happening. So hey, let's hear from some of our guests. What about that?
Yes. Did anybody see the movie or have any comments, or do you want to see the movie now that you have
now that we have spoiled it for you?
No, not at all. I don't want to hear it, or I don't want to watch it. Maybe scare them a little bit. They're like,
or like, what? Wait, did they say our name? That's fine. That's fine. If you don't have anything you wanted to add, I just wanted to make you understand that this is what our film discussions are, is if you have something to add, if you have a question or whatever, feel free to pipe in.
Yes. And also, just as a little plug, we will have more of these coming up in the fall. I think this is our probably one summer meeting now, but we are going to be meeting again in the fall, starting in September, I believe. So keep an eye out for any future events. I think the next one is September 22, Cesar Chavez. So keep, right?
That sounds right.
I just looked on my calendar. So that's our next one here, and I'm excited for that. All of those coming up. So yes, we will be releasing the fall schedule coming out pretty soon, and everyone stay safe. Happy Pride Month.
Oh wait, before we do this, there's a couple of things that I
Oh,
want
and I have to post the attendance form.
Oh yeah, attendance, sure. Oh crap, no. But this is the control. Let's see, here we go. Control V. There's the TCC history events webpage. So you know, keep you up to date on things that are happening. Here's the past history events that we have recordings that you can see things. And if you liked our lively banter here, this is a podcast we put together called Watch Wisely, and those are the links for anybody who wants to do that. I don't have a questionnaire built for
I
this.
do. I posted
Okay,
it.
all right, cool.
So yes, here's your attendance form, and we will be putting that on the Google site as well if you are watching it. So yes, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you all soon. So have a great day, everybody. Make wise decisions. Wise decisions. Yes. And we'll
I'm
see you all.
trying.
Yes. I'm Chloe Northrop, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for coming.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Okay. I'll see you on Tuesday.
Ah.
There you are. There you are.
See you Tuesday.
All right. Bye.
Bye.